Hey, it's Tess, content creator, model, presenter, and host of the Tess Talks podcast, on a mission to ignite curiosity. Hey guys, and welcome back to another very exciting episode of Tess Talks. Today's guest is someone I have been following for such a long time, and I was so honored when I got the opportunity to get him on the podcast. Dr. Will Bulsiewicz, also known as the Gut Health MD, is a board-certified gastroenterologist and New York Times bestselling author of The Fiber Fueled Cookbook, and has a brand new book which is just released called Plant Powered Plus. He's also the US medical director at Zoe, which is one of the world's leading nutrition science companies, and he's generally one of the most respected voices in gut health today. Now, I know I've spoken about gut health a few times on this podcast, but I don't think that there is a more qualified person to speak on the topic. Today's conversation is so fantastic because we delve into how gut health really works and why it's so important. And Will outlines clear, tangible tools on how you can improve your gut health within just a few days. It's empowering, it's educational, and it's science-backed. I know there's so many of us that are feeling symptoms of inflammation. And inflammation is the driver of disease. So we need to be looking at the things that our body is telling us now, from skin flare-ups to bloating to fatigue to IBS. Our body is always giving us messages. And it's conversations like these that make us aware of what's happening in our body, why it's happening, and how to fix it. Dr. B covers a lot with us in this episode, everything from IBS to leaky gut to autoimmune diseases and general disease, how medications and antibiotics are affecting our gut, as well as external factors in our environment. We learn how the gut is linked to our immune system, to our mood and feel-good hormones, as well as even our fertility and just overall health. We bust a few myths, which I know is going to surprise a lot of you, like, are seed oils actually that bad? And what about sugar? Is it the devil as much as we've been told? Fermented foods and fiber, should everyone be taking them? And even electrolytes, is that just a fad, or should we all be doing that daily? If this episode inspires you and you want to delve deeper, I will put the link to Will's new book in the show notes below. I was lucky enough to get an early preview, and I know everyone will benefit from this book. It has so many tangible tools and tips you can implement today, and it's really easy to read and very digestible. No pun intended. Without further ado, let's get curious.
My wife is very into routines.
Yeah.
And it's kind of an interesting thing, Tess, because one of the things that I cover in my new book is circadian rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually become clear to me that the more that you can give your children routines, the more actually that they function better and they're happier, which to me is like just, it aligns with the same things that we need as adults. So we have most of my kids at 5 o'clock. It's like my 3-year-old and my 2-year-old, 5 o'clock, bedtime.
Oh,
Time to go.
Asleep at 5.
Sleep at 5. Wake up at 7.
Is so impressive.
Yeah.
That's the best I've heard yet.
Well, the key is like, once you establish that routine, you got to be very consistent. Okay, 4:30, we're going to start getting dinner ready for these kids.
Oh my God, wow. I love that. I've heard about dinner at 4:30, which I'm all down for because I'm very big on early dinner, helping your digestion and everything overnight. But yeah, we're still hovering at, I think, around a 6:37 bedtime. But that sounds amazing. What time are they waking up? Are they getting up at the crack of dawn or?
So I think once you get them into this like sort of routine, I mean, these kids, they can go for a solid 14 hours.
Yeah. Wow.
So put them down at 5. They wake up at between 7 and 8. And,
oh my God,
they're fresh. And yeah. And they take a nap too.
I think we're going to have to jump on that goal and get some parenting tips. We might have to do another podcast. Will's best parenting tips. How parents enjoy their nights together the rest of their lives.
Well, the earlier that your kids go to bed, the more that you have time for you and your spouse. So it's really nice. Yeah.
Totally. So excited that you could jump on today. And again, I'm very sorry about the earlier mix-up. I'm glad we got you in before your book goes live next week, which is very exciting. What was the gap that you felt still existed in the gut health conversation that I guess made you want to write this one?
All right. So Tess, from my perspective, a book is a tool for healing. And I have been blessed with a beautiful, wonderful opportunity which is that my lifelong dream was to be a medical doctor. That started when I was a teenager, right? But to write books that can impact the lives of people that I've never met, literally across the globe,
Mm.
what's a better version of my dream than that?
Mm.
And my first book, Fiber Fueled, sometimes I feel a little bit. I love music,
Me too.
right? And I'm a fan of like the idea of like a rock band, even though I can't sing. I wish I could.
Your alter ego coming through.
Yeah. So I think of like how the first album by a band is just like organic.
Mm.
You have something that you want to share. That was my first book, Fiber Fueled. And what I wanted to share was what I was seeing in my clinic as a gastroenterologist. And this story of gut health that really had not made it to prime time. It was not mainstream when I wrote this book. And it's interesting that fiber is having a moment today because many of the things that are being discussed are the things that you will read in my book from
Mm.
2020. And so, but after that book came out, people came to me and they said, Dr. B, like I am inspired by your work. I want to eat the way that you're describing, and I am struggling to do that.
Mm.
So I thought to myself, if I were in a clinic with this person, what would I do? Let me write a book about that. And that
Mm.
became the Fiber Fields cookbook. It's like a very unique, it's the most unique, weird cookbook that you'll ever, in a good way, that you'll ever come across because it's not just recipes. It's like a book and recipes with beautiful photos and 2 protocols
Mm.
that are designed to address food intolerances. So I finished those 2 books. It's 2022. And here I am, and I have the opportunity to choose whatever I want to write about. And the way that I see gut health is like this. Your gut microbiome is the command center for human health. This is the way that I see it. And it's interacting directly with your immune system, with your metabolism, with your hormones, with your mood and your brain health. Each of those is its own story. Each of those have their own opportunities for healing. And I chose to go into the direction of the immune system, which is the story
Mm.
of inflammation, which is what this book is about.
Mm.
And to me, and if you were to line up health professionals and ask them, do you believe that inflammation is the number one problem in the developed world from a health perspective? I would expect the vast majority of them to say yes.
Mm.
And so I view this as I'm taking on the biggest problem that I can possibly take on as a medical doctor. It's complex.
Mm.
And my challenge is to take this complex thing and make it interesting and fun and simple
Mm.
and approachable. And also to show people what I've discovered in the last 3 years, 4 years, which is that the opportunity for healing inflammation
Mm.
actually starts in the gut. And that may surprise people, but that's the truth.
Mm. It's funny, isn't it? Because it's become such, and I don't want to use the term buzzword because it obviously is such a problem, but it has become such this like big thing in our lives everyone is talking about. And it feels like almost everyone feels like they have some form of inflammation. All the girlies online feel like they're inflamed, whether they're puffy or bloated or, IBS type symptoms. What do you think it is about like our society and what we're doing that has caused such this drive of a rise of inflammation?
Well, first of all, I acknowledge that it is a buzzword and
Mhm.
that sometimes the fact that something becomes trendy, it actually becomes a problem because when it becomes trendy, then we actually start to dismiss it.
Mm.
And that includes inflammation and that includes this concept of like leaky gut. And I want everyone to know that like actually these things are real
Mm.
and I have all of the science to back me up on that. And I'm happy to share that with you. Whether you read my book or not, I'll give you all the studies that I used to
Mm.
write this book. And what you're describing, people saying like, I feel inflamed. Actually, I think their intuition is on point. Inflammation is everywhere. And it's these subtle symptoms, these things that you can't quite put your finger on. And if you go to your doctor for it, they kind of don't know what to do with it. Like fatigue and headaches and skin outbreaks, which could be like acne, but it could also be eczema or psoriasis or rosacea. Could be irregular periods for women or perimenopause or menopause, right? That's having a moment right now.
Mm.
And in men, it affects testosterone production. It affects sperm production. The statistics around that are scary. Like
Oh
50%
no,
drop in sperm
it's
in the last 30
terrifying.
years. That's terrifying,
Projected to
right?
be what, infertile by 2050 if we continue at this rate?
Oh my
Crazy.
gosh, I don't even want to talk about that.
That's
That's so
terrifying.
scary.
I
Yeah,
know.
that is. And it doesn't have to be a scary topic. But
Mm,
what we do need to do is we need to acknowledge where we are so that we can craft a path forward.
mm,
So how did we get to where we are today? And Tess, to me, this is a story about like how quickly the world around us changed and we accepted
mm,
things as normal in our lives that were not normal.
mm,
So I grew up in the 80s, and ultra processed foods really, really took off during this period of time. I was raised on this food.
mm,
This was what I ate as a kid. And our parents, it's not their fault. They didn't know. From their perspective, it was cheap, it tasted good, the kids are happy to eat it. But unfortunately, what we are seeing today and understanding is that this shift, where in the United States right now, 60% of the calories that a person consumes, more than half, are ultra processed foods that did not exist when my grandparents were around,
mm,
right? So, and this is just one example.
mm,
We could think about all of the changes that have occurred in the last 100 years. I think about like, when my grandparents were born in 1918, did their parents have a car? I'm pretty sure they did not,
mm,
right? How did they get to school? Well, I know they rode their bikes. Like, there's so many different elements to this, let alone the fact that we have a phone,
mm,
right? Or a tablet or a laptop, things that like, I'm probably the last generation that remembers the world before the internet completely took over.
mm,
And so you think about these things, and here's the key point is that these things don't necessarily need to be bad, but we need to figure out how to organize our life and create a normal for us as individuals or for our family
mm,
that actually is healing. Because if we just fall into the trap of accepting what is normal in the world today, normal,
mm.
which was not normal 100 years ago, we are creating a problem for ourselves because we've just drifted far too far from who we really are.
Totally. And I think we only have to look at all the data around us to see that how we're living is not normal. We're sicker than ever. Fertility rates are terrifying. Disease, cancer, everything is, increasing incredibly. So it's like we need to start taking, I guess, some ownership and some recognition about what we're doing and how to start reversing some of this.
Yeah, I think that that's totally fair. And I don't sit here and say like I don't want this to come across or sound like this is casting blame on anyone, right? I
Mm,
myself am shocked that I'm able to be here in this interview with you and okay, because the vast majority of my life, 80% of my life, I ate trash, I wasn't healthy. So it's quite remarkable how far you can come in a period of, for me, 14 years. It's remarkable how quickly you can transform yourself.
mm,
And so um I want people to know though that there is an opportunity for healing,
mm,
and it doesn't need to be complex and hard. And you
mm,
should not wait for anyone else to do this for you. It
mm,
needs to start today, and it needs to be basically you making the decision. Enough is enough. I want to be healthy. And what can I do? And I'm happy to provide you with what you can do. Small, simple choices.
Mhm. Okay, so talk to us a little bit about how inflammation is directly affecting the gut. Like what's actually happening inside and what are the things that are happening to our microbes, from all the external and internal factors that we're doing.
All right, so let's pretend for a moment that we're going to take a microscope and it allows us to zoom in and see places that are not visible to our eye as you and I are sitting here and having this conversation with one another.
Mm.
And we zoom in on the gut microbiome, and what you will discover is a world that a universe that you didn't even know existed inside of you, filled with a lot of life. 38 trillion microorganisms, and they're different types. There's bacteria, there's fungi, there's these things called archaea, there's viruses in there, but they're a little bit like us, Tess. Like they have their own unique jobs, right? Certain people are doing this, other ones are doing that. They have their personality types. Some of them are very nice, compassionate, want to help you. Others, they're angry and they want to create a mess, right? And they have connections with one another. Like there's cliques. They like some of them hang out together and they show up together, and other ones are not part of that group. So you discover that there's this entire world inside of you,
Mm.
and that's your microbiome. And as I mentioned, connected to so many facets of your health. And what's important to know is that those 38 trillion microorganisms are literally micrometers away. So perhaps not everyone is as nerdy as I am. That's that's my ultra nerdy way of saying so close
We love a bit of
that
nerding out.
yeah, that it's like, if I put my fingers like this, like together,
This close.
that's how close. Yeah. So close. And what is in there is 1.3 trillion immune cells.
Mm.
70% of your immune system is aligning your intestine, because what you need to know when we talk about inflammation, we're really talking about your immune system, which is the little army inside of you that defends your body.
Mm.
And inflammation is basically them going to war.
Mm.
And they are trained, their basic training is in our bone marrow. And then they get deployed out into the body. But it turns out that your gut is actually the place where we need them the most, because that's actually where we're interacting with the outside world.
Mm.
So 70% of them that get deployed to the lining of your intestine. And there
That's
they
huge,
sit.
isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, if you were to ask, where does your gut live?
Mm.
It's not your bone marrow. It's
Mm.
I'm sorry, where does your immune system live? It's not your bone marrow. It's
Mm.
actually the lining of your gut. This is the home base for your immune system, is in your
Mm.
gut. And so, with that much space between the microbes and the immune cells, there's just this single layer of cells, so delicately there, called your gut barrier. And its job is really important, because the gut barrier, it's supposed to allow the good stuff to come in. So, like, we don't want to keep out nutrients and things that are going to help us and heal us. But at the same time, it needs to be sufficiently strong and formidable to keep the bad guys out, the ones that are trying to cause trouble. Those are
Mm.
like the pathogens like E. coli. And so this gut barrier is really what connects the microbes on one side and the
Mm.
immune cells on the other. And when the gut barrier is strong, then you have a protected, safe immune system that's able to do its job, which is
Mm.
like, if there's an infection, it'll clear the infection for you. If you get hurt, it will help you to repair and restore your tissues. But what we don't need is that immune system getting triggered by things that aren't supposed to be getting in there in the first place. So, and this is why the gut barrier becomes so important. So this like idea of leaky gut is basically just saying, hey, the gut barrier is broken down, and there's a sort of more technical expression for this, which is increased intestinal permeability. That's just like a scientist's way of saying the exact same thing, leaky gut.
Mm. I was actually given a really good visual about leaky gut a few years back, and it was kind of when you put your fists together and you have like a strong gut barrier lined
Mm.
together, and then when it starts to get disrupted, the cracks appear, and you split your kind of wrist apart, and so it's kind of like that's the leaky gut and the barrier breaking. And that really solidified it in my head because I was actually diagnosed with leaky gut a few years back, which I'll get into. But I guess what are some of the biggest signs that people can look out for that might be the first stages of a disrupted gut?
Well, so naturally you may develop gut symptoms, right? Because when the microbes are being affected,
Mm,
and they're not doing well, then it's hard for them to do their job. And part of what they do is they help us to digest our food.
mm,
So the manifestation of bloating would be sort of the classic thing. But also it might affect your rhythm. And when I say that, what I'm referring to is constipation, that's slow rhythm,
mm,
diarrhea, that's fast rhythm, right? Or it might affect the nerves that line the intestines and you might feel discomfort. And if you combine these things, I've just described irritable bowel syndrome, basically. That's what
mm.
it is. So those could be early signs, but also the immune system, when it gets activated, we always, on some level, are forced to pay a toll. Like we have to pay the price. And if you've ever noticed, like you have an infection, how do you feel? Well, you are exhausted. That's number one. And that is like one of the most shocking things is, when you have an infection, you might sleep for 18 hours in a day,
Mm,
right? But also you might get body aches. You uh, may have a change in your appetite where like you might lose your appetite, but you also might have like a ravenous appetite and a lack of self-control. So these are, or joint pains, these are examples of like sort of inflammation type symptoms, and they can show up in a more sort of like under the radar way when we have this chronic inflammation where, like, think about it. How much money do we spend between Australia and the United States on energy drinks,
oh, I don't know. Do you
right?
have a figure for us?
I wish I did. I wish I did. You know what? I should have
Yeah.
looked it up before I came on this call, but
Yeah. There's that
I
what's
think
that
that
one in the States that's like diabolical that surprises me that it's even legal, but people are having all this liver failure from it. Do you know that one?
no, but some of them it's like drinking gasoline. It's like
Wild.
wild. And this market that has like grown and gone crazy. I mean, not to mention
Mm,
like I love coffee. I'm a massive coffee
mm.
drinker and we can talk about that if you want to. I have a cup
Same.
right here. But cheers.
Cheers.
Um I love coffee, but at the same time, like if everything was perfectly aligned, I don't know that we would need so much to be totally honest with you,
Mm,
right? So on some level, it really feels like we have a crisis of energy. And
mm,
when the immune system gets activated, we always pay the price with our energy. We always lose it.
mm, mm. All right. So let's start to talk about some things that might be, I guess, more optimistic for listeners. What would you say the first things that people can start doing to improve their gut health?
Okay. Thank you for shifting us to optimistic because um, the truth is actually I'm very optimistic about
Mm,
what's possible. Healing
mm,
is possible and healing can come very quickly. So can I give a few
mm.
quick examples and then we'll dig into like the
Please.
strategies?
Yes.
Okay. So first of all, we've known since at least 2014, one of my favorite microbiome studies, that the choices that you make today in terms of the food that you eat will start to impact your microbiome by tomorrow.
Mm,
So it's that quick that things can start to change. But here's some other interesting and cool facts that I learned in writing this book. Our gut barrier. So our entire intestinal system is covered with this gut barrier, again, this single layer of cells. It turns out that it's the part of our body with the greatest turnover of cells just about anywhere. Every 3 to 5 days, we create an entirely brand new gut barrier.
wow.
This is one I understand that it doesn't look like the liver. It's different. But to me, this is an organ of its own. It's an immune organ,
Mm.
protects our body. And to know that you can create a brand new one that is healthier and stronger than it was 3 to 5 days ago is so exciting and encouraging. Just to put one last like mic drop statistic to this. All right. Literally, as you and I sit here and we carry on this conversation, Tess, every second that we have been talking, every second, our body has produced 450,000 brand new cells to insert and install into our gut barrier each. Combined, we got 900,000 cells per second.
That's incredible. Go us.
So imagine that you could create the conditions where the installation of those cells is done in a beautiful, powerful way to support your health. Healing is
quick
possible.
Question on that. If I had just devoured like a super saturated, fatty, fried breakfast and who knows what, drinking coffee and maybe a bit of an energy drink in the mix, would my cells be growing at the same rate or would they be getting destroyed?
Okay. Tess, don't take us back to the negative view here. What are we doing?
Rewind.
I thought we were moving on. Okay, no. Let me answer the question. So first of all, coffee actually is not bad. We can talk about that. It's not, coffee is not my number one thing.
That's what we want to hear.
But coffee is actually a gut health drink. Like for sure.
Oh, wow. Why is that?
Yeah. Okay, so first of all, coffee contains polyphenols. Polyphenols are when you walk into your supermarket, and I'm quite sure that this is true in every part of the world, the first thing they're going to show you are the colorful, fresh produce, right? The different plants. And those colors are polyphenols. And polyphenols are so good for us. The listeners have heard of some of these: quercetin, resveratrol, curcumin from turmeric, right? Those are polyphenols. There's over 8,000 of them. Well, so coffee is actually a great source of polyphenols. All right. And coffee actually has fiber. Coffee has soluble fiber. So it's not grit. It's not roughage. It's dissolved in the drink. You would never know it's there, but it's there. And it feeds the microbes. So research that was done at Zoe, I'm the US medical director of this company, Zoe. It's a nutrition company that's focused on the US and Australia, but we have a quite popular podcast that definitely people in Australia are, I'm sorry, the company is focused in the US and the UK.
Yeah.
But we have a quite popular podcast that people in Australia clearly are listening to.
Cool.
Some of the research that's been done at Zoe, we've actually shown that coffee consumption affects over 100 species of microbes. And of all of the foods and drinks that we analyzed, and we have a database of 300,000 people where we have their microbiome and we know what they were eating. Of all of the things that we analyzed, the number one thing was coffee. So here's the cool thing about coffee. And I think there's some lessons for the listeners at home from this. If you're a coffee drinker, you drink it every day. And there is a reward for consistency. So if I were going to put coffee head to head against kale or a kale salad, or if I were going to put coffee head to head against turmeric, if it was just a one-time event, coffee would not win. But the issue is that you drink coffee every day. So here's what's happening in your gut. Day 1, little nudge. Day 2, another little nudge. Day 3, a third. And repeat that for 30 days. And those little nudges have added up to something that is profound and reshaped your microbiome. The power of consistency can have a massive impact on your health.
I think consistency
I'm glad that I
is one of
made
the
you happy
biggest
there.
things. Will, you can come back anytime. That's the news I wanted to hear.
Yes.
What about though drinking coffee on an empty stomach? Because I feel like there are lots of varying opinions around that.
If I were to create the perfect gut health morning routine, the way that I would approach this is the first thing to hit your stomach would actually be water, because you haven't had anything to drink for this period of time while you were asleep. You probably got up to go pee in the middle of the night. and you're a little bit dehydrated. So I would start with that. And then the thing about the morning, and this is, by the way, chapter 6 of my new book is all about circadian rhythm. The morning is one of the most beautiful opportunities to create routine that can transform how you feel for the rest of the day until tomorrow.
Mm.
And the two ways that I approach this, number one, you want to get light exposure. In a perfect world, you step outside. And I would encourage people to do this before coffee. And if you do this, the way that our body was created, Tess, is that our body wants to know, what time is it,
Mm.
right? What time is it? What's going on? What are we going to be doing today? What's our calendar, right? The same way that we all sort of maintain a routine, your body has a routine too. And the way that it synchronizes is the way that we lived for millions of years. If we go camping, you know when the sun comes up,
Mm.
right? You can't miss that. The problem is we don't camp anymore. We live in houses with air conditioning. So the sun comes up and you may not even realize it, or you see it through the window, but that's not the same
Mm.
because the window glass has actually filtered out the light that we're trying to get access to. But if you step outside, that blue light that's coming from the morning sun's rays, and it doesn't have to be a clear day. It could be completely overcast, but there's still blue light coming from the sun. It basically turns on your body, shuts down the nighttime hormone, which is melatonin, boosts the morning hormone, which is cortisol, and everything turns on. So daytime morning light exposure is, to me, like the number one thing for building our morning routine. And if you could pair that with exercise, you can actually enhance this even further. So to me, the two things are morning light exposure and exercise. And when I say exercise, I don't mean crazy stuff. I just mean like
Mm.
literally a walk, light exercise. After that, that's when coffee comes in.
Mm.
That to me is the ideal time, right? You get your light exposure, you get your walk, you get your coffee
Mm.
going, and then you enjoy your coffee.
It's funny, isn't it? Because I feel like I'm all for biohacking and equipment and all the things, but I feel like we have overcomplicated it so much. It's like, oh, I'm going to go use my LED red light panel as soon as I wake and then jump on my vibration plate and then do this. And it's like the earth has offered us everything. You know, we have everything. We have access to our breath. We have access to the sun. We have access to movement. We don't need all these gadgets. And I think, you know, what you're saying, it's like coming back to the basics, the really simple basics is what I guess nurtures our body the most.
We have drifted away from, natural exposure to sun.
Mm.
Work from home, like literally, you might not go
Mm.
outside all day,
Mm.
right? So we have drifted away from that. And what we need to do is create patterns that restore these natural, like our natural biological appetite. Like we have an appetite for the sun. Our body is starving for
Mm.
that. So yeah. And I do agree with you, by the way, that I'm not against wearables and things like this. I think they're very cool,
Mm.
but they can also complicate things so much and make it confusing. And
Mm.
where I'm at is like a quite simple question. How do you feel?
Mm.
Right? If you were in the clinic with me, literally that would be the first question. How do you feel?
Mm.
And I would let you answer that. And then that would frame everything from that point forward,
Mm.
including how I interpret your wearable stuff.
It's funny, we actually stopped wearing ours because it's like you wake up and you know how you feel. I think if you wake up and you feel good, but then you have your ring or whatever telling you that you haven't had your optimal sleep, you automatically get that imprinted into your brain and it affects your whole perspective on your day moving forward. So I just feel like that data is not always necessary.
That's exactly the point. So
Mm.
I think like on some level, we have to keep in mind that like um these are companies. Their job is to convince you that your life requires their product. So we are constantly bombarded with information that like it tries to convince us that you need
Mm.
this in order to fulfill yourself.
Mm.
And yet on some level, there are these free tools that naturally exist in our worlds. And all we have to do is take advantage of them. And
Mm.
what I would say is this: If you do this, like Tess, your audience, if they step outside and get some of that beautiful Aussie sun in the morning, I promise you, you will feel the difference. You will have better focus. You will have more energy. You will have more cognitive endurance. This is day one. And then that night, you will sleep better. All because you did this one thing that I'm telling you is totally free.
I love your accent when you say Aussie. It's so good. So what would then be, say, your ideal day on a plate? What are the kind of foods that we can do to be optimizing our gut microbiome?
So in the book here, I'll sort of simplify many of the arguments that I make, which is that I think that like these arguments over the perfect diet are silly. And I think that the tribalistic fighting that occurs on the internet about like some dietary label, like vegan versus carnivore, paleo versus keto, it serves no purpose. Because honestly, the best diet is the one that you're actually willing to do. And it is not one size fits all. That being said, there are the laws of nature that like basically my body is working a certain way, like it or not, as we sit here. And the laws of nature have shown me that there are specific things that if we focus on them, it will improve the health of your gut microbiome. It will repair and restore the gut barrier, and it will reduce the inflammation, meaning anti-inflammatory. So, and those four things happen to be things that are frankly missing in the modern diet. Fiber. Of course, I have to say fiber. All right. But like, again, not only is fiber so good for our microbes, fiber is the food, the fuel for our microbes.
Is fiber good for everyone, or if someone clearly has a very disrupted gut microbiome, should they be starting a protocol first before bombarding their system with fiber, or is it good to start straight away?
Okay, that is a really great question because I wish it was so simple, but actually this topic is nuanced. For some people, you have to ease your body into this. And for some people, you have other health issues to address before you start focusing on fiber. For the person who has a damaged gut, fiber is very hard for them. But at the same time, this is actually what they need the most. So we really want to get this right. And it's just a matter of like going through the process that allows us to get there. So I like to say, start low and go slow. You approach it the same way that you would in the gym, which is that if you walk into the gym, you are going to lift the amount of weight that your body is actually capable of doing. You're not going to do more than what you're capable of because that's how you get hurt. It's so obvious. But then by lifting that amount of weight that actually is exercise, you get stronger. And you build yourself and you add functional ability and you get yourself to the point where you can lift that dream weight that you didn't think you could ever get yourself to, but you can get there. So the gut is much like that. Fiber is the exercise. And as you start to add fiber, you need to start with the amount that your body can tolerate. That's why I say go low, because if you go low, we're going to basically meet your gut where it can stand. And then when I say go slow, that's basically this idea of building over time and progressing and adding ability.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks for clarifying that. I know I cut you off from your other 3 top recommendations.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. So fiber is the first.
Yeah.
And then the other 3 are polyphenols. So we've kind of already talked about them. So the colors of our food. The third are healthy fats. So I don't think we should be vilifying any macronutrient. I think what we should be doing is talking about dietary quality.
Mm.
Dietary quality is what actually matters. We can get high quality carbs, high quality protein, and high quality fat. And if you do that, you will be super healthy.
Mm.
So high quality fat is, to me, talking about avocados and seasoned nuts and extra virgin olive oil, and then the healthy omega-3 fats that can come from fish and shellfish.
Mm.
And then number 4 is sort of different and unique. It's fermented food,
Mm.
because every culture in human history has, and it tends to actually be their most celebrated food tradition. Fermented food has been a part of every single culture in human history. And what that meant is that we were eating living food that
Mm.
was interacting with our microbiome. We're inviting this, ecosystem that might be kimchi or, or yogurt or kefir or whatever it might be. We're inviting this ecosystem, introducing it to ours, and some of them are going to stick and hang around.
So how come I have friends that cannot stomach fermented foods, like things like kombucha and things? I have a few friends that are like, I just cannot do it. It completely disrupts my gut. I feel bloated. I feel gassy, burpy, whatever. What is that?
Yes, you have just identified why I wrote my second book. So,
Great.
yes, the cookbook, which was about food intolerances,
Mm.
what you're describing is classic for
Mm.
histamine intolerance.
Mm.
So people that have histamine intolerance, which by the way, most commonly manifests as a result of a weak and broken gut barrier.
Mm.
So if we could fulfill our goal of what we're discussing today, which is to repair and restore the gut barrier, if we could fulfill that, the symptoms of histamine intolerance should really improve.
Mm.
But the reason why a person struggles with fermented food, and they may also struggle with fish and shellfish, they may also struggle with avocados and spinach
Mm.
and tomatoes. The reason why is because those are high histamine foods.
Mm.
And histamine is actually the product of microbes. So
Mm.
when you ferment stuff, which by the way includes alcohol,
Mm.
and it includes vinegar too, when you ferment stuff, you produce histamine.
Mm.
And that's not a problem for a person whose gut is strong and their gut barrier is intact, but it is a problem when the gut is not where it needs to be and the gut barrier is weak and porous. And now that histamine can leak into the bloodstream and generate symptoms, which include bloating.
Mm.
Bloating is the number one symptom, but then you could
Mm.
also have you could start getting a runny nose, you might get flushed, you might get a skin outbreak, you might get headaches,
Mm.
migraines.
It is very empowering to know that it is all reversible, especially knowing that our microbes, regenerate in such a quick pace. I think these things that we suffer and that we have often feel like they can be this big, daunting kind of thing over our heads, and dealing with leaky gut or IBS or histamine. I know is not always the easiest thing to kind of get on top of, but I think what you're saying that it is so reversible, I guess, if you're working with the right practitioner.
100%. And here's what I would say: that imagine that you start to make small, I'm not talking about 50 things.
Mm.
I'm talking about just a couple small tweaks to the way that you live your life. And you do that and you feel the difference,
Mm.
right? You notice your body has given you the feedback that you need.
Mm.
You know that you're onto something. You know that healing is underway.
Mm.
And where that leads you, time will tell,
Mm.
right? But what you should do is you should stick with that
Mm.
and then build upon that. So this is my personal journey. I was, at the age of 32, an accomplished medical doctor who was in private really struggling.
Mm.
And I was way overweight, like 20 kilos overweight. Um, and had high blood pressure, high cholesterol. I was anxious. I was depressed. I had zero self-esteem, even though I was accomplishing so much. And the way that I fixed this started with like these first steps. Like I actually started with smoothies because they were easy and I felt so much better. And so then I kept doing that. And then I would like get rid of all the soda, like all the, carbonated sugary beverages, get rid of that, replace it with something healthier, replace it
Mm.
with water, feel so much better. You just, next thing you know, you level up and it's a
Mm.
process. It's not going to necessarily, I'm not claiming it happens overnight, but what I am saying
Mm.
is that the healing does begin overnight.
Mm.
And the way in which you could feel the difference actually pretty quickly.
Mm. I'd love to do a little rapid fire about some of the things you've written in your book, maybe bust a few myths, because I feel like these ones are spoken about a lot. So the first one, are seed oils actually bad?
I think it's a little bit too much, a little too much of like vilifying the seed oils and making them sound, and then we're going to replace them with beef tallow. That makes absolutely no sense to me, right? Which is like the conversation in the United States right now.
Actually haven't heard the
So
beef tallow replacement.
it's a very US thing,
Mm.
right?
It'll
And
come
beef
to us
tallow
soon, I'm
is like,
sure.
oh man, I hope not. I love y'all too much.
It always does. We're always
So
6 months behind.
here's what I would say. So like there's some people that are like seed oils are the worst thing ever. And then
Mm.
other people like they vigorously defend them. Here's my thing. Like, do we really need seed oils in our life? No, we don't.
Mm.
In nutrition, it's always about what are you replacing with what. So if you take something less healthy like beef tallow and you replace it with seed oils, actually you would be more healthy.
Mm.
But if you take the seed oils and you replace it with extra virgin olive oil, actually I would prefer that. That's where I would
Mm.
love to be.
What about oils at high temperatures?
Ooh, don't like.
Mm.
Bad for the microbiome. Yeah. So
Is there any oil that's okay at a high temperature?
so avocado oil would be preferred. Avocado oil
Mm-hmm.
is the preferred oil for high temperature cooking.
Mm-hmm.
That does not mean that I am encouraging high temperature cooking. Don't get me wrong. It tastes great. I enjoy it. But have you ever noticed, Tess, you answer this one for me. Have you ever noticed you eat fried food and how do you feel for the next 3 hours?
Well, terrible, sluggish, bloated, but also because I
Exhausted.
exhausted. But I think also once you've been clean for a long time, it's amazing how sensitive your body comes to this stuff. Like I thought a couple of years back, I thought, you know what, I was a bit hungover. I was like, I might treat myself and order some KFC fried chicken. Probably the first time in, I don't know, 8 years or something that I'd had it. I was so sick. I felt so horrible. It's like never again. Absolutely never again. It is amazing how once you start to respect your body, how in tune it comes with things that don't serve it.
100%. And,
Mm.
my point is that you eat that fast food, could be KFC fried chicken, you instantly feel it. And
Mm.
you may be like, oh, I just don't feel that great, right?
Mm.
Yes, you are feeling inflammation. The wind has been taken out of your sails.
Mm.
Try like going for a workout after you just ate fast food or fried food. It's impossible.
Mm. What about sugar? Would sugar be one of the biggest gut disruptors?
Definitely.
Mm. What's your stance
Definitely.
on sugar?
Like how should we approach it?
Yeah. Should we be cutting it out completely? Is a little bit
It's
okay?
unrealistic.
Mm.
It's unrealistic to say that we're going to cut it out entirely. The average person in the United States is consuming about their body weight in sugar on a yearly basis,
Mm.
like just below their body weight. So that ain't good.
It's
And
terrifying. And it's in everything, I think, which is what is so terrifying. It's really hard to avoid and cut it out completely.
yeah, I mean, I'm not advocate. So my general approach to nutrition is about what we can add
Mm.
and focusing on those things and then trying to pack our diet with those things.
Mm.
It's not about like really, really rigid elimination that kind of drives you insane and then you quit,
Mm.
right? So, but that being said, I would really love to replace sugar as much as possible,
Mm.
and make it just a once in a while thing. Like if you want to enjoy some
Yeah.
chocolate, you want to enjoy some chocolate, like so be it.
Mm. Mm.
Um, you want to enjoy dessert once in a while, so be it. But where I get a little
Mm.
bit worried is like if you take and I hope that I'm not calling you out because I don't know what you'd put in your coffee, but like if you take your coffee, I used to drink coffee where I was like, so much cream and either so much sugar or tons of artificial sweeteners.
It's very
And
American, that, I have to say. It's
is it?
not as
Okay,
common here.
good. All right. Now I'm straight black.
Yeah.
Now I'm straight black. So
Mm.
that to me is like where we want to be. We want to move towards is like if we can
Mm.
get rid of this as much as possible and move towards choices that just don't include it at all. That's the way to be.
Mm. All right. So the next one's for my husband. If someone's going to drink Coca-Cola, should they be drinking Coke, Diet Coke, or Coke Zero?
I would. Okay, well, none would be the choice, right? And if you like carbonated, so you could. Here's what I've done.
Mm-hmm.
I've really kicked. I used to be a 2-liter per day Coke drinker.
Wow, that's impressive. I'll give you
It was
that.
bad. Yeah. I mean, it was so bad. It was affecting many aspects of my health. But among those 3 choices, if you have to choose one, if you're going for fun, right, and you want to enjoy something, I would go with the Coke Zero. It tastes just like regular Coke. And a little bit of that artificial sweetener once in a while, I don't see as being a huge deal.
Mm-hmm.
But there are people who are drinking these on a daily basis. Like that's their routine. That's where, to me, I have a problem. Because like the exact thing that I said about consistency with the coffee being good for us. Well, what if it was something that was not good for you and you were doing it every day? Right? So here's what I've done. I've shifted over to carbonated water, and it's always in a glass bottle. And so the concern that I have about these traditional like soda beverages like Coke is that they usually are coming in a plastic bottle. They are acidic. You can taste that acid, but also you can look at the label. It says citric acid on it. And the acidity within plastic is actually a setup for microplastics. Which we really, if you haven't heard about this, I'm happy to describe it, but it is not something we want in our diet or in our life.
Well, I've heard microplastics are also part of the picture to infertility.
Yes, so they can be estrogen disruptors, and because they can basically, the microplastic that we have and it comes into our body can actually affect hormones. So I should have said endocrine disruptor because it can affect men's hormones as well, right? So what I've done is I've shifted to carbonated water in a glass bottle, right? And then if I want to add flavor to that, I add a splash of whatever juice. So like I'll add a splash of lemon juice or a splash of pomegranate juice, and it tastes good.
Okay, what about electrolytes? Is that just a hype?
Hype. Hype.
Why is that?
If you are going to work out and before you go, you haven't even sweat at all, and you drink a super high salt solution, right? That salt is going to pull water into your bloodstream. And on some level, you will feel like your exercise performance is improved, right? Because like basically you've increased the blood that's circulating through your system. But the problem is you also have like set off this cascade that's affecting your kidneys where you have all this extra salt burden that your body needs to eliminate. And there is basically a period of time where the work and the effort has to be put in by your body, including your kidneys, to basically like get rid of that extra salt that you just added that frankly you didn't need.
So we're overdoing it on the salt.
We're way overdoing it on salt. And the idea that, that more salt is good for us, I think that we must see and understand that there are many things that feel good in the moment, seem like they're right, and the evidence when you zoom out is very clear that they're not good for you. And so I would argue that we need to be cautious with this because we are hardwired to chase salt. We're hardwired to chase sugar. We're hardwired to chase fat. Why? Because 99.99% of human history, that's what we needed to survive. And we are now in this new phase where we have an abundance of fat, sugar, and salt. And if anything, what we need to do is actually push it away.
Mm. It's almost like coming back to that simplicity and everything in moderation. I think we get on these like fads and these bandwagons and we jump on and we're like, okay, electrolytes every day and this food every day. And it's like, it just becomes too much.
Tess, there's this concept in food science. And food science is not nutritional science. Nutritional science is the understanding of how our food impacts our body.
Mm,
Food science is the process of creating new foods,
mm,
which is basically like if you want to create ultra processed food, that's what you do.
mm,
And there's this concept called hyperpalatability. And what they've discovered is that, Tess, if you and I, if we started a food company together, there's a trick that we could use where if you give sugar, salt, and fat in concentrations that you will not find in nature, you will make people come back for more.
mm,
That's the idea of hyperpalatability. This is the idea of like you just like, you can't stop yourself. You're still going,
mm,
right? Because our brain is searching for these things. Again, these were
mm,
scarce nutrients that we were starving for. And if you provide them in excessive amounts and you get 2 out of 3, sugar plus salt, sugar plus fat, fat plus salt, if you get 2 out of 3, you've created the setup. People will overwhelmingly consume your food and not even know when to stop eating. And
mm,
here we are with an obesity epidemic.
mm. It's also so much to do with all the fillers and artificial ingredients that are in so many products. How are some of those things affecting our gut? Like even things like xanthan gum, I've heard that in high doses can affect our microbes. And I look on labels and I feel like it's in everything from breads to yogurts to drinks to like skincare, toothpaste.
It's a complex topic because the issue is that I don't think it's fair to say that these foods, in like every single one of them, is inherently bad.
Mm,
And I don't think it's fair to say that every single food additive is inherently bad. But the problem is we don't really know.
mm,
And, we have introduced many of these things into our food supply without sufficient research because they're not drugs.
mm,
So we can't hold them to that standard.
mm,
But then we allow them into our food supply and we don't really have a good way to figure out what's causing what because there's so many of them.
mm,
So what we do know is that in many cases, dietary emulsifiers are particularly problematic. So if we combined oil and water, we all know what happens when you combine oil and water. They separate. Well, that actually is the problem that many of the foods that you buy that are ultra processed have, is that they include fat and water.
mm,
And we as humans, that we don't find that appealing. We don't want to have to shake it up. So they add these emulsifiers, which the entire concept is to make the fat and the water mix together and not separate.
mm,
And you have to bind them together. And the problem is that, like, unfortunately, these dietary emulsifiers are consistently showing up as being problematic for our gut microbiome.
mm,
This is the category that xanthan gum falls into.
mm,
And there's other ones, carrageenans in this category, carboxymethylcellulose, polysorbate 80. There's a number of them.
mm,
There was a study done in France where they put people on a low emulsifier diet versus a high emulsifier diet. And when they had people on the high emulsifier diet, they started developing symptoms like quick.
mm.
These are healthy people that didn't have gut issues. All of a sudden, they're on a high emulsifier diet, boom, wrecking their gut.
Wow. I found it interesting as well. You noted in your book that although we can assess how additives are affecting our gut microbes, the FDA does not mandate microbiome testing for the additives, which seems like it is kind of dated, but you see how I guess they just kind of skip over some of the potential data to whatever's easier for them.
So for the Australian listener, the FDA is the Food and Drug Administration in the United States. This is our government regulatory and conceptually similar to like FSANs.
Mm.
And the issue is that they have allowed 10,000 things into our food supply in the States. And my argument is that we have this new technology, which is microbiome testing. And I accept and acknowledge that this new technology is only about 20 years old. So a lot of the things that are in our food supply, we didn't have the ability to test them before.
Mm.
But if something is going to negatively affect our health as humans, it will most likely show up in the microbiome first
Mm.
and start adversely affecting the microbiome before it moves on to actually causing human bodily injury, before it moves on to the manifestation of disease.
Mm.
Right? This is the entire process. So my argument is that we have this opportunity to catch this way earlier using this new technology. Why are we not applying that technology to
Mm.
these different things to answer the question, what is safe? And, you know,
This
we
is where my skeptic brain comes in. And I'm like, well, there's not
we can
much
get
money in
cynical
people
here.
being healthy, is there? But anyway,
This is
this
the
where my
issue.
brain
It's like
goes.
how far down the rabbit hole do you want to go with this?
I
So
know. I like to push the rabbit hole a little bit on this podcast. While we're talking about the FDA, I'd love to touch on medications and antibiotics because you've spoken about that a bit. Firstly, like how would everyday medications for us, such as like Panadol and Nurofen, and for you, I think it's like Advil and Tylenol, how are they affecting our gut?
well, particularly the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs like ibuprofen, indomethacin, aspirin actually is one of
Mm,
them, believe it or not.
mm,
And I'm not trying to bash on aspirin. That's a little bit of a different conversation for people that need it for heart disease issues.
mm,
But with total clarity, these things are not good for the microbiome. And 100% clarity. And they are
wow.
the number one cause of the breakdown of the lining of our intestines. So we're having this big conversation about how your gut is installing 450,000 new cells every second. And then here's the flip side, which is the number one cause of ulcers is these types of drugs, because they are disrupting the lining of your intestine to create an ulcer. That's what an ulcer is, the disruption of your lining.
Mm.
And
So, does even
so
one dose of something like this have an impact?
I don't have a clear study to say that, but here's
Mhm.
what I can say to that is that these microbes are creating a new generation every 20 minutes.
Mm,
They're constantly creating new microbes, new species, new generations. What seems trivial to us, I have a headache, one dose could be potentially impactful for them because of the vulnerability and because of how much they're turning over.
mm,
And so um the way I would position this is like, I don't deprive myself of these medications if I have a headache and really need them, but I would far prefer to find an alternative solution if I could. And those
mm,
do exist.
mm. Even when my girlfriend says every time she has a headache, she'll first take electrolytes, and she finds that most of the time it actually significantly helps.
Yeah, so there's some electrolytes. If you, for example, had a magnesium deficiency, which
Mm,
is what might be happening, like it's hard to know. You take a
mm,
generic electrolyte and it has sodium and potassium and magnesium, but magnesium actually is great for headaches. And another thing that can be great for headaches is caffeine. Back
mm,
to coffee.
we love our coffee, star of the show. So, what about antibiotics then? One round of antibiotics, what's that doing?
I mean, this is actually very well studied, and
Mm,
there's nothing that destroys the gut microbiome faster than antibiotics.
mm,
As we discuss this, let me first contextualize. As a medical doctor, this is the greatest invention in the history of human health. But the flip side is that you will always pay a price with your gut microbiome. There was a study that they did humans where they basically had volunteers and they gave them one of four antibiotic protocols. And what they discovered was that it took between 1 and 2 months for the vast majority of people to actually get back to close to where they were when they started. So that's a lot longer than I would have thought. I would have thought 1 or 2
Mm.
weeks.
Mm.
It takes 1 or 2 months for the microbiome to get back to where you started. But there were some people in this study, not the majority, but enough that makes you want to be cautious,
Mm.
where, I mean, it's like 6 months out and their gut microbiome hasn't recovered at all.
Mm.
And they are missing a third of the species relative to where they started before the antibiotics. And that's 6 months later. They're missing a third of their species. So the point from my perspective is, I guess, like twofold. Number one, we should only take antibiotics when we really need them.
Mm.
And I think it's really fair game to ask your doctor basic questions. Do I need these antibiotics? What happens if I don't take these antibiotics? This, by the way, includes with our kids, Tess,
Mm.
right? What happens if we don't take the antibiotics?
Mm.
And that way you can at least make an informed choice.
Mm.
The second thing is you need a strategy to protect yourself from the negative impacts of these microbes, of these antibiotics. And so to lay out the strategy just real quick, and by the way, I have a YouTube video that would be going up like really soon on this topic.
Great.
If people want to deep
I'll
dive
be
it.
watching that.
But the general strategy is, number one, you want to be on a high fiber diet, ideally before, but like before, during, after, all 3 phases, high fiber diet.
Mm.
Number 2, fiber supplements, because that adds additional support and like directly targets the microbes to give them what they need. Number 3, take advantage of the opportunities to heal your gut that don't involve food. So you're going to eat this healthy diet, but you also should like get outside, exercise, sleep well, right? These things. And then number 4, now is not the time to be sabotaging your gut. Now is not the time to go out drinking or to have that like, ridiculous amount of cake with ice cream or to like excessively consume a saturated fat. So we want to, as much as possible, support the microbes and not do things that are actually going to make this worse.
I guess, again, that's positive because you're saying it can be reversed. This is what I want to ask. If we do keep going to town with all these disruptors, if we are taking antibiotics a lot, if we are starting to see this inflammation come up in our body, how much of this disruption is being linked to later life disease?
Okay. So I'm going to spin this into something very optimistic. Can I find a study to show that the health condition is associated with inflammation and also with damage to the gut microbiome? And the answer was that I found like over 130 health conditions associated with inflammation, and literally all of them, the microbiome study showed that the microbiome was unwell. Here's the optimistic side. The gut microbiome and the gut and the immune system are so intertwined that you can't separate them. So if you heal one, you would be healing the other at the same time. The gut microbiome is amenable to healing. It wants to be well. It wants to heal. It wants to support your body. And what does that require? It requires us as the stewards, as the sort of like owners of this gut microbiome to create a healthy environment for them. So when the environment is healthy, which includes our food, includes our daily rhythms, circadian rhythm, it includes our relationships with other people, right? When the environment is healthy, the microbiome becomes healthy. And when the microbiome becomes healthy, so does the immune system. And that to me is the opportunity that we have. So all of the things that we've discussed, some of them good, some of them bad. If we could shift the balance, every little piece that we take off the side of bad and we put on the side of good is us changing that scale and ultimately driving us towards health.
You actually have a really interesting and pretty extensive list of Western diet associated diseases in your new book. What do you think are some of the like most common ones that you see linked to inflammation?
Well, so there, in addition to these 130 health conditions that are associated with inflammation, in chapter 3, what I show is that there's 55 of them where there's research to show that a Western diet, basically meaning like high ultra processed food, very low fiber,
Mm,
is associated with these health conditions. So, and I'm convinced that if you had a study for all 130, there's only 55 studies, but if you had
mm,
a study for all of them, they would all be associated.
mm,
And so, again, I see this as an opportunity because we are not required to accept what is normal today. We're not required
mm,
to accept that. We are allowed to empower ourselves and understand what is good
mm,
and then to drift towards that
mm. It's
and
amazing
enjoy the
seeing.
benefit.
Yeah, it's amazing seeing some of the new kind of research that's coming out as well. I know you've spoken a bit about fecal transplants, which generates a lot of interesting discussion online. But it's funny because one of my good friends actually participated in a 12-month peer-reviewed study in Australia done at a hospital called St. Vincent's Hospital. And it was basically a randomized study where half of the participants would get placebo and half the participants got the actual fecal transplants. And she partook in it for 12 months. So I should probably clarify, she had Crohn's disease. So at this
Mm,
point, something that technically is not reversible or curable. So she did this for 12 months. Once a month, she would go into the hospital. She would be put under for her fecal transplant. And 12 months later, long behold, she is now officially in remission, which is crazy. So I'm like, can I line up? And is this going to make me like optimal health? But really, really cool research coming out around this stuff.
yeah. So fecal transplant is where you take the gut microbiome of a person who is healthy
Mm,
and you transfer that into the person who is unwell.
mm,
And it only should work if the inherent problem involves the microbiome.
mm,
And my entire thesis is that, of course, it involves the microbiome. We need a
mm,
healthy microbiome in order to be healthy. And so the emerging research is proof that these connections are real.
mm,
And Crohn's disease is a type of health condition that we call an inflammatory bowel disease, where the immune system, many people think it's autoimmune. It's actually not. It's actually not autoimmune
mm,
because autoimmune would mean that the immune system is attacking your own body. In this case, the immune system is attacking your microbiome.
mm,
It believes that the microbiome is the enemy. And so the immune system is going after it, and stuck in the middle is your gut lining,
mm,
which then becomes ulcerated, starts to bleed, and you get the physical manifestations of Crohn's disease. It's a brutal health
mm,
condition. So if the problem exists in the microbiome, if you were to fix the microbiome, then you would ultimately be addressing the root of this inherent issue. And this idea, there's still a lot. So just to be transparent and clear, there's a lot for us to learn about how to best use fecal transplant to treat this type of health condition.
mm,
It's not yet totally clear, but the future is bright
mm,
because of a person like your friend
mm,
who has shown us that, look, one is not enough. But if you could do it and install that new healthy ecosystem once a month,
mm,
and simultaneously, what if you could support that ecosystem, these new friendly bacteria that are taking up residence inside of your body? What if you
mm,
could support that? Support them with healthy food, with a healthy lifestyle, with good sleep, with exercise, right? With control over stress and things like this.
mm,
Then you are giving that microbiome the best chance of like sticking and being healthy, and then ultimately reversing the entire disease that you're trying to address. So
mm,
there's other research that is discussed in my book on the topic of Crohn's disease. And some of the research is like mind-blowing what you discover.
Really? It's
Yeah,
incredible, isn't
one
it?
study from Japan. Yeah, it's fascinating. There's one study from Japan. So this is different. This is not fecal transplant,
Mm.
but there was a study in Japan where they took a group of people and they are treating all of them with medication, the same medication. But some of them, they're going to actually have them change their diet
Mm.
to a healthy diet. And what they found is that if you were to just take the medication, you have a 15 and 25 chance of being in remission after a year. So that's okay. That's more than 50%, right? But there's still a lot of people, 10 out of 25, that are failing and they're
Mm.
not well. And if you add diet to this medication, it was 24 out of 25 that
Mm.
after a year were in remission.
Wow.
So I think that like the opportunity is the convergence of all the things that you and I have been discussing today.
Mm. Do you ever break some of your own gut health rules?
Of course.
Life is about
Look,
balance, hey?
my attitude is progress over perfection. So every single time I go and break the rule and do something,
Mm.
a quick example. I have no clue how you feel about alcohol, but for me, for most of my life, 20s, college, 20s, early 30s, I didn't have a problem, but it was too much.
Mm.
And then I still kind of carried on like a little bit until I came across this study that made me totally convinced that the best answer is none.
Mm. And why was that?
Well, they took a group of people and had them consume alcohol in a certain amount relative to their body weight. And then they would check the blood alcohol level, and, basically draw some blood and check their blood alcohol level every 30 minutes. But they also checked this thing that's a marker for leaky gut called lipopolysaccharide that should not be in your bloodstream. And if it shows up in your bloodstream,
Mm.
you know the gut barrier has been damaged
Mm.
because this lipopolysaccharide is associated with E. coli, like inflammatory
Mm.
bacteria
Mm.
that have like gotten into your blood. And what they showed is that as like you could put the graph of what was happening in the blood alcohol level and put over the top of it the graph of what was happening with the lipopolysaccharide, the leaky gut marker. They were like in parallel.
Wow.
And when the blood alcohol level peaked and started to go down, so did the lipopolysaccharide level.
Mm.
And when this weird thing happened that I can't explain because I'm not like an alcohol metabolism expert, there's something weird that happened where the alcohol peaked, it started coming down, and then actually it went back up again. And when it went back up again, guess what else went back up again? Lipopolysaccharide. And how long did it take for lipopolysaccharide to get back to zero? The same amount of time that it took for the alcohol to get to zero. It never went to zero until
Mm.
alcohol was gone.
Mm.
So when I saw this, I said to myself, that, uh, habit of 1 or 2 glasses of red wine in the evening to like kind of unwind with the TV before I go to bed,
Mm.
it's not serving me.
Mm.
So I now am in a place where I mostly don't drink. But that being said, if I'm out with my friends or it's a special occasion, I'm on a date with my wife,
Mm.
I'll have a glass of wine. And I think you got to
Mm.
make room for those kinds of things, right? Like these can't be such rigid rules that you're not allowed to enjoy your life.
Totally. And we know that joy also increases our longevity. So I think like not being so strict on ourselves and also having that knowledge that, things are reversible. So having that balance and coming back to simplicity, I think it's all incredibly valid.
100%.
Mm. Thank you so much, Will. This has been absolutely awesome. I love to end my episodes by asking our guests to leave a little verbal entry in the Tess Talks diaries. So it's just one lasting piece of advice or wisdom that you feel is important to share.
We've talked about a lot of things
Mm.
during our time here today, and a lot of it starts to come across very tactical. Eat this, do this in the morning. The thing that we haven't really touched on in great detail, but you will find in my book in chapter 8, and it's one of my proudest moments as a doctor, is that there's more to the story than just what you eat and these lifestyle elements.
Mm.
Your relationships, your traumas, these have a massive impact. And so my closing thought is that we get a lot of health from leaning into our relationships with the people that we love.
Mm.
All aspects of that, physical contact, intimacy with the appropriate person, but also emotional bonding. They set us at ease. They allow us to feel safe.
Mm.
And when we feel safe, we are the best versions of ourselves. So as a closing thought, yes, there are dietary elements that we can focus on. Yes, there are daily routines that we can follow, but don't forget, it's really about the people in your life and
Mm.
making sure that they know that you love them and also receiving the love that they have for you in return.
Mm. Such an important message. Thank you so much. I'm so privileged to already have had a preview of your book, Plant Plat. It's such a tongue twister. I can't. Plant Powered Plus.
Yes.
I'm going to have to practice that one.
I did that just to mess with you, Tess. They're like, what do you want to call this book? I was like, well, you know what? I'm pretty sure people will have trouble with the tongue twister here.
Right. Need to practice, but I'll put all the details in the show notes so people can purchase it, find out where to see you, find more information, follow your YouTube, all the good stuff.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you to all of my friends in Australia. I want you to know that I love y'all. Like, you're my favorite people. And I don't just say that. I'm being real. Yes.
Yay,
and
we
also,
love that.
for those of you who don't know this about me, 38 Terra is my gut health supplement company. And I don't want to turn this into a big thing other than to say that it was formulated by me in conjunction with a team of Australians. And it's actually manufactured in Australia. It's manufactured in Ballina.
That's so close to where I am. Love.
Really?
Yeah, I'm in Byron Bay currently.
Oh, you're in Byron.
Yeah,
oh my goodness. I've heard Byron's amazing.
Oh, you have to come.
My co-founder, co-CEO is Simon Hill. He's Australian. And he tells me all the time, like, the vibe in Byron is so great. So I would love to do that one day.
You'll have to. You'll have to hit us up, and I'm going to make sure to put the link to 38 Terra below as well, because I think that's a fantastic place for people to start.
And Tess, what kind of Australian coffee would you serve me when I come?
Well, definitely a beautiful local long black brew. But what I'm currently drinking is a coconut latte. So I don't know your perspective on coconut milk, but that's my new one because I'm going off all the nuts, all the almond milks and the, or oat milk's more of a grain. But yeah, this is my new thing.
I'm such a coffee lover that I don't want to disturb the flavor. I want to be able to experience the flavor of the coffee. So that's where I would go for, I like espresso. I love long black, sounds great. But when I do like a latte, you can't beat coconut milk. It's so good. Coconut milk is the best.
Right?
Yeah.
Great. I'm glad I've got the tick of approval from you.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Will. Thanks so much for listening. If you loved the episode, please subscribe, rate, and review. It honestly means so much and helps to keep these conversations going. And I'd love to connect with you. You can message me on Instagram or TikTok, and I've left all the details from the episode in the show notes below. I'll see you next week.